today is about limits at infinity. Okay, start ta sa polynomial functions. So for all n element positive integers, so positive integers say n, and a n element in R in a real number, which is the leading coefficient class ato ang polynomial function. Okay, so if limit sa a sub o lang ta class, which is ang a sub o is a constant number, it is element in the real numbers. So ang limit lang sa constant kay ang constant ra gyapon. Bisan pag positive to negative infinity mo approach si x, so ang limit ani is always constant. Okay? Next, ang limit sa polynomial function na in class ko as x approaches to positive infinity is positive infinity if our leading coefficient an is positive, so kung positive ng naguna, and then if an is negative, negative infinity pa ang answer. Now, number 3, ang limit class sa polynomial function, okay, as x approaches to negative infinity is equal to, okay, na yung mga cases, direct class positive infinity if n is even and an is positive. So, kung positive ni siya, and then positive po if even ng n. So, next class is positive infinity if n is odd. So, odd si n and an is negative. Di ba class kung odd atong n class, then approaches man siya sa negative infinity. So, this value is always negative. And negative man atong an. So, kung negative si an times negative aning value sa x to the n. So, the answer is positive always. So, this goes to positive infinity kaning nga limit. Okay, next class, ang limit kay negative infinity if ang n is odd and an is positive. Okay, class, kung odd class ang ato ang n, so odd siya. Therefore, kaning x to the n is negative. Okay, as x approaches negative infinity, negative man atong x diri class mga negative. Okay, and then an class is positive man. So, kung positive ni siya diri, the negative ni nga value. So, the answer is negative infinity because always negative ang yung value na din ani. So, atong basihan lang dyan sa polynomial function kas kay ang leading coefficient lang sa katong term with the largest exponent. Kay diri lang ta kay kani man siya ang magdala class sa limit kay kani man gagmay naman is exponent. So, diri ra gid ang carry ang sign. So, next, negative infinity if n is even. So, kung even si n class, mahimo na siyang positive nga value kini x to the n. And then, an is negative, yung negative man si an. So, pwede mo po siya negative. So, the answer is negative infinity. Okay? So, let's try. So, example. So, limit sa constant class is always constant. So, limit of 3 as 3 approaches to positive infinity or in negative infinity, the answer is 3. And then for negative pi is negative pi. Pi is a real number gihapon, di ba? 3.1416 na siya approximately. Next, ang limit pagka sa square root of 2 is square root of 2. Limit sa negative 1 is negative 1. And then limit of 1/4 is equal to 1/4 as x approaches positive or in negative infinity. So, as you can see class sa graph, sa function nga f of x is equal to 3, kani siya. As x approaches infinity, tanawa class, as x mo approach ang infinity, naragid siya diri sa 3. Diri man ang 3. Okay, and then, kung padulong siya sa negative infinity, kung tanawa ang value sa x class, nga padulong siya sa negative infinity, padulong ra po siya diri class sa 3 ra gihapon. So, manang 3 tanan iyang limit ani. Either sa positive or sa negative infinity. So, same lang po class sa negative pi. So, nadiri ang negative pi. That is negative 3.1416. So, nadiri siya in dapita. Kanang red line. And then, square root of 2 is 1 point something. So, nasa diri pod. Okay, this is 1. Then, this is 2. Kaning line. So, kaning siya nga line nasa 1 point something. Square root of 2. Okay, so, kung ano po negative 1 class, kung mo na sa graph sa negative 1 po na siya straight. And then, sa 1/4 po na siya. Okay, wala na ako na siya gi-graph. Okay, done with the constant function. Sa'yo na kayo. Okay, next, number 2. The limit of the polynomial function as x approaches positive infinity. So, kani siyang x to the n class is always positive. So manang si an na lang magdala sa sign. So if our an class is positive, so positive infinity, and then if negative siya, so negative infinity. Okay, tanawan ni class example. Okay, 2 is a positive number, so the answer is positive infinity. Negative 3 is negative, so negative infinity. And this is 1 is positive. 2/3 pi is positive, so positive infinity. And this one is negative 1, so the answer is negative infinity. So, para makita na to class, tanaw na to iyang graph. Okay, graph sa 2x squared plus 2. Okay, mo ni siya. 2x squared plus 2. So, dili lang talantaw class nga part. Kinang diri sa positive nga side sa x. Okay, tanawa class, padulong siya sa positive infinity. Tama, sa value sa function sa y. Okay, next class. Okay, next function kani. So, tanawa class, as x approaches positive infinity, pa-down man siya. So, padulong siya sa negative infinity. And then next, okay, kaning number 3. Okay, it goes upward sa positive infinity. And then negative infinity, okay, ang fourth nga example, kay padulong siya class sa padulong siya sa ubos or downward siya. So, padulong siya dito infinity sa negative ng mga values sa y or sa f of x. Okay? Kasi yun na po siya. Next, kaning negative class, a limit sa polynomial function as x approaches to negative infinity. So, nani na mga cases. Okay, if n is even and an is positive, so dara, n is even and n is positive. Tama, positive 2. Ay, n is even and then an is positive, an is 2. So the answer here is positive infinity, so positive infinity. Next part, an is negative and then n is odd. Okay, the second case. So this is positive infinity again. Okay, next for the next one, this is positive. Our an is positive but our n is odd. Okay, this is the third case. The answer is negative infinity. And for the last case, this is negative. The an is negative, then n is even. Okay, this is the last case. So negative infinity also is the answer. Okay, let us see their graphs. Okay, the class. 2x squared plus 2. Okay, look at limit as x approaches to negative infinity. So, dili na talantaw class sa negative infinity nga part. So, mga negative numbers, negative values sa x. Okay, so padang siya class sa pasaka. So, upward, this is positive infinity. Next graph. Okay, for the second one. Okay, it goes upward as x approaches negative infinity. So, this is positive infinity. Tama, kay upward man class. Okay, next. Okay, limit class of this third function as x approaches negative infinity. Okay, as you look at here, as x approaches negative infinity, it goes downward, so that is negative infinity. And then in here, the last example, okay, as x approaches negative infinity, the value goes downward, so it goes to negative infinity. That is the answer. Okay, now next, limits of some functions with absolute value, nth roots, or rational exponents. Okay, so first, limit of the absolute value of x plus 2. Okay, this is just equal class a limit of the absolute value of x, even if without plus 2. So because this x is contains the largest exponent. So this is the what do you call this one? The term which contains the leading coefficient. Okay, diba? Ganun siya. Okay. So if this is an absolute value, can you imagine its graph? The graph of the absolute values forms like letter V, right? So it goes upward. Okay, the answer is positive infinity. Even if x approaches negative infinity. Okay, let us show the graph. Okay, the graph is in here at the side. Okay, look at here, class. So as x approaches in positive infinity, it goes upward, and then as x approaches negative, so it goes upward again, so it goes to positive infinity. That is the limit. Okay, now next. Okay, the absolute value of 2x 2 minus x. Okay, this one class, since it has an absolute value here, the value for this one is always positive. That is why the answer is positive infinity. So the graph for this one is here. Okay, as you can see, it goes to up to positive. Diba, positive values ang nasa sa y, not on mga values. So as x approaches positive infinity, it goes upward, so positive infinity. As x approaches negative infinity, so it goes upward again. So that is positive infinity. But if na ay negative class na gawas sa absolute value, the answer now is negative infinity. Okay, we look at its graph. Okay, tanawa class ihang graph. Pa-down na siya class. Okay, this is now always negative naman na value. Okay, na may absolute value din niya na negative sa gawas. So it goes downward. So the answer class is always negative infinity, even if it approaches to positive or negative infinity. Okay, so you can see here, if it goes to positive infinity, it goes downward, and if it goes to negative infinity, the x value, it goes downward always. So that is negative infinity. Okay, now next. Okay, the limit of the square root of x plus 2 is just equal to the limit of square root of x, or x to the power of 1/2. Kanila itong ikuan class kani largest nga term. Pwede wala na ni siyang to equal, actually equal ra na sila. Okay, pwede sila the same o graph. Ang answer lang kay ang limit nila, it goes to positive infinity. Kita na to class yung graph. Wait. Napade class, if the limit goes to negative infinity, the answer is does not exist. Okay, why? Okay, nganong wala naman, hindi naman mag-exist ang limit. Kay class, kung ma-negative na ning x class, nabada square root sa negative number. Okay, that is an imaginary number naman. So, di natin siya ma-plot na diri sa atong Cartesian plane. So, DNE here at the bottom, DNE means does not exist. So, the limit does not exist. So, as you can see here, this is the graph of the square root of x plus 2. Okay, it goes to positive infinity as x approaches infinity. But class, wala siya graph diri padulong sa negative infinity kay wala siya value dito. So does not exist ni siya class nga limit ana siya as x approaches to negative infinity. Tama lang man siya og negative 2. Di ba mana yung domain? So dapat sa domain class yang domain kay katumang koan negative 2 to positive infinity. X is greater than or equal to negative 2. Ano yan? Domain. So, dapat pas na lang sa domain iyahang ang na-ay value. So, dito ra po siya. Sa positive man siya, mga positive man na values niya sa x ng mga positive x, mara po siya yung kuan. Ito ma-substitute. So, diri ra po siya class na limit sa positive infinity ma-solve. So, as x approaches to negative infinity, di na to siya ma-solve na. Okay, does not exist na siya. Next, the square root of negative x plus 2. Okay, negative na ang x class niya. Positive infinity ng x na to diri as x approaches positive infinity. So, this one class is always negative. So, what will happen? Okay, actually, the answer is does not exist. Okay, di naman nato ni siya ma-solve class kung dako na ning x. Example, ang x na to diri is 5. So, negative 5 na siya plus 2, negative 3. Square root sa negative 3 is an imaginary number na, so does not exist na ni siya diri. And then kaning isa, kanina po siya class is square root siya pero negative x plus 2 as x approaches to negative infinity. Okay, negative infinity man. So negative ning x, then na pa negative, so ma-positive ni siya. Okay, the answer is positive infinity. Okay, so ang hint lang diri class kay imo lang tanawon class ba ang sign kung padak-an man nimo siya og ayo kung sa positive values, kung positive infinity ang as x approaches to positive infinity, then kung as x approaches negative infinity, mga negative values pwede mong i-substitute sa function. Then kung magka-increase siya og ayo, so kung pasaka iyang values, kung positive sa positive infinity mga answer, kung paubos pa iyang value, kung mga negative po siya, negative infinity. Then kung wala na siya value class mo na siya does not exist na dahil siya kanisa diri lang. Okay, so tanawon to class yung graph. Okay, dara yung graph class. As we can see class, dara sa kilid, as x approaches to negative infinity na siya value which is increasing, so pasaka siya positive infinity dara. And then wala siya class value na sa diri sa 2 to padalang sa positive infinity, wala naman siya dito, so does not exist na siya, muna na siya. Okay, now next, what if na negative class gawas sa square root? Okay, as x approaches the positive infinity, so kung positive ni siya always, positive ni nga value niya, may negative class, so the answer is negative infinity. Okay, so mo pa niyang graph class. Okay, di ba paubos siya class? Okay, padulong na siya paubos. So, di na siya upward, so downward na siya. As x approaches infinity, so this is negative infinity. Pero class, if kaning x di approaches to negative infinity, padulong pa siya to negative infinity, ang answer na siya does not exist. Okay, wala na siya diri. Nasulat ang katong as x approaches to negative infinity. So that does not exist ang answer ato. Okay, next class, cube root of x plus 2 as x approaches positive infinity. Okay, the answer is positive infinity. Kay kung positive ni class atong x, positive value man gyapon ang cube root niya, di ba? And then kung negative pud ang x class dire, limit sa cube root of x plus 2 as x approaches to negative infinity, negative po ang value ani, di ba? Na may negative, na may cube root ang negative, example negative 9, ayang cube root is negative 2. Okay, so pwede ra direct class ang negative na yung mga answer ni siya, dili lang sa square root ang na yung mga does not exist. Actually katong mga kuani class, mga even ang kuani, mga nth root na mga even ang n, so dire basta mga odd na ay siya always answer. So either positive or negative infinity lang yun ining mga odd na mga root. Okay, so equivalent na po na siya class sa cube root of x or x to the power of 1/3 nga limit. Okay, murag wala lang ni siya ang largest lang nga term, kani man siyang largest nga term kasi x man ani class ang ma-approach siya infinity, so gamay ra kay ng plus 2. Okay, so this one goes to positive infinity, and then this one goes to, okay, the answer is negative infinity. Okay, we will see the graph for that. Okay, this is the graph. Okay, as we can see, class, as x approaches to positive infinity, it goes upwards, so positive infinity. And then as x approaches negative infinity, so padulong siya this negative class, padulong po siya pa downward. So this is, it goes to negative infinity. So negative infinity ang limit. Next class, cube root, then negative sa sulod. Okay, this, the limit as x approaches to positive infinity. So this is positive, the value for x are positive, and then negative manidaan dire sa sulod, so man negative ni siya, so negative infinity, negative yung value. Then dire class, as x approaches negative infinity na negative daan dire, so mahimo ni siyang positive value, so the answer is positive infinity. Okay, we will see the graph for this one. Okay, this is now the graph, the cube root of negative x plus 2. Okay, as we can see, class, as x approaches to positive infinity, it goes downwards to negative infinity. And then as x approaches to negative infinity, okay, but down to the left side, it goes upwards. So the answer is positive infinity. Okay, now next one is a combination. There's a cube root and then there's an absolute value here. So the answer, class, is positive infinity. Why? Okay, as x approaches to positive infinity, this one is positive, and then this one also, the absolute value of x plus 2 is always positive, so the answer is positive infinity. Okay, the graph for that is this one. Okay, so it goes up as x approaches to positive infinity, it goes upwards, so positive infinity. Okay, class, if x approaches to negative infinity, it still goes upwards, so the answer for this one, if this is negative, class, the answer is also, the answer is negative infinity. The answer is the same. The answer is positive infinity since it goes upward also. Okay, now next, this one, on the limit of square root of x minus the absolute value of x. So as we can see, class, this absolute value of x is less than the absolute, the square root of x is less than the absolute value of x. So this one is greater than this one. So if this is 1, for example, this is 4. If x is 4, square root of 4 is 2. So minus 4, because the absolute value of 4 is 4. So the answer, class, is always negative. So the answer is negative infinity. So the graph for that is this one. Okay, so we can see, class, it goes downward as x approaches positive infinity. So class, if this limit goes to negative infinity, okay, as we can see the graph here does not contain values from the negative part. Here from the negative x, right? Why? Because walay negative value sa square root ni x. Nga naman, kay kung negative si x class, may siyang imaginary number, right? Okay, so ang limit class as of this function as x approaches to negative infinity does not exist if this is negative, ha? Okay, now next, limits of functions with absolute value, nth roots, and rational exponents. So, marag generalization kung hay ni class, no? So, ang limit ni f of x function na absolute value sa gawas as x approaches positive infinity is always positive infinity. Ni kung ay negative class sa gawas, negative infinity. Okay, this is always positive, and then there's a negative here outside, so the values are always negative, so it goes to negative infinity. Now next, for any integer n greater than or equal to 2, diba? Kung 2 square root, kung 3 cube root. Okay, sa function f of x, the answer class are only 3, positive infinity, negative infinity, or does not exist. So depende class, no, kay kung even ra ba ang n, dapat positive always ang value sa f of x. Dili pwede siya ma-negative kay does not exist na siya. And then mo ni class, ang sign lang yun sa atong f of x ang important na makuha na to, no? Kay kung mag-negative ni siya si f of x, niya atong n is odd, the answer is negative infinity. Tama? And then if our f of x is positive, okay, sure, it goes to positive infinity. Okay? Now, next. Ay, wait. If f of x, okay, it's correct. If the value of f of x is always positive, so any of this as x approaches to positive infinity or as x approaches to negative infinity, so the answer is always positive infinity. This one is always positive. Okay, now next, for any positive integers pq such that p is greater than q and pq is in the simplest form, then the limit of, okay, this is now for the rational exponents, a n x to the p over q as the limit as x approaches to positive infinity is equal to positive infinity if a n is positive, and then it is negative infinity if a n is negative. So, ang tanawan lang class basta limit as x approaches to infinity, kanilang diyong a n. So, pare-parehas na siya ganina class sa polynomial function, no? Okay, nga ang kanilang gauna class ang tanawan nato as x approaches to positive infinity. Pero as x approaches to negative infinity, kasi daghan kayo cases. Okay. Tanitanawon class nga case. So class, if q is odd, okay, natay upat ka buok. Pag yun. And then if q lang is even, so matawag mga square root, mga fourth root naman din ang mahitabuan kung 4 na siya, no? Or mga even number ng q. So if even number class ang q niya, ang x na to kay infinity, negative man ang mga values diri sa x. So does not exist, yun na siya class. Okay? Pwede ra pati katong shortcut ganyan na DNE lang to yun. Ibotang basta kay means that the limit does not exist. Okay, now positive infinity class yang answer if, okay, q is odd, p is even, and an is positive. Then positive infinity gyapon if q is odd, p is odd, and an is negative. Kaya kung negative ng duha class, okay, na negative si an class niya si p kay odd, so negative ra ba ni? So if odd si p, so negative ni nga value unya ang q na to ha, add na siya, so negative ni nga value niya, negative ang an, so positive gyud, so positive infinity. Next class kani, if p is even, so kung even class atong p, positive man ni. Okay, and an is negative, negative man si an, so yung sign is always negative, so negative infinity. Next class, if our p is odd, so odd na pod si p, so this value class is always negative. Then ang an kay positive man if an is positive for the case 4, okay, so the result is always negative, so the answer is negative infinity. Okay, examples. Okay, nato examples diri class. Limit sa 1/3 as x approaches to 2/3. Okay, as x approaches to positive infinity. Okay, positive infinity man kasang basihan kay dali lang gauna, no? Si an lang. Since this is positive, the answer is positive infinity. Then number 2, the limit of negative 1/3 x to the power of 1/4 at 3/4. Okay, since this is as x approaches to positive infinity, kanilang first ang tanawon, since this is negative 1/3, the answer is negative infinity because this value is always negative. Right? Okay, next, the limit. Okay, for number 3 class, x approaches to negative infinity. Okay, this goes to, okay, look at the case 1. Because we can see p is even here too, an is positive, then q is odd for case 1. So the answer is positive infinity. Okay, next, number 4. Since this value, this value goes to positive. Positive values man class, kung sa itong i-substitute ay nasa x na mga negative. Okay, right? Okay, number 4. Kani siya, negative 1/3 x to the 1/3. Okay, mo ni siya. P is odd, which is 1. Q is odd again, 3. And then an is negative. Negative man si 1/3. So the answer is positive infinity for that. That is in case 2. Kaya nga naman class, because this one is always negative, kaya x to the 1/3, kaya negative infinity man eh. Yan na, times man nato permis sa negative 1/3. So mahimo siyang positive yung mga values. So it goes to positive infinity. Next, number 5. Okay, for case 3, p is even, which is 2, and then an is negative. Okay, this one class is always positive, x to the 2/3, but we multiply it with negative 1/3. That is why the values are always negative. So the answer is negative infinity. Okay, for number 6, this is for the case 4. Okay, p is odd, 3/5. Okay, they're all odd. And then an is positive, an is 1/3, which is positive. The answer is negative infinity. Why? Because this one is always negative, and then times a positive number, the answer is always negative, so negative infinity. Okay, for number 7 and 8, the answer for this one are always does not exist. Okay, why? Because it goes to negative infinity, and q is even. Okay, next. Okay, wait. This one is in here in the case 5. Our q is even. Okay, so does not exist ang limit. Okay, next, theorem 1. If r is any positive integer, then the limit of 1 over x to the r as x approaches the positive infinity is equal to 0. And then if the limit goes to negative infinity as x approaches negative infinity, the answer is 0 also. So, kani class, ang atong x kay naa sa denominator niya, it goes to positive infinity na values. So, ma-0 jud siya kay, di ba? Example 1, divide na to og 10, di ba? That is 0.1. And then, if ang 1 class or any number pa na siya, real number, divide nimo og dako kaayo nga value, the answer is 0 point something. So, bisan pa dako mag-ayo class si x class, it goes to 0, di ba? As x approaches to infinity. Okay? So, example, 1 over x squared. So, the limit of this one as x approaches to positive or in negative infinity. So, ito nang i-double diretso ni class. The answer is 0. And then 1 over x cubed. So, bahala siya. Even pa na siya or odd pa na siya. Diha si 3. Si r. Okay, this is always 0. And then, class, bisan pa og kuan class, natay 5 over 2, no? Okay, pwede naman ilahi class si 5 over 2. So, natay 1 over x cubed. Taning igawas si 5 over 2 dili sa gawas sa limit, no, pwede raman natay 1 over x cubed. Anyang 1 over x cubed class iyang limit kay 0 man. Okay, so 0 times 5 over 2, the answer is 0. So 0 gyapon ang limit ani class. Actually class, 0 gyapon ang limit class basta naabit ta diri sa denominator ang variable. Dayon dako as x approaches to infinity, dako gid siya ayo class to infinity siya class. Bisan pa og negative nga mga values basta kay pa increasing kay siya diha sa ubos, 0 gid na siya padulong. Okay, kung dako kayo class ang denominator, ang mga values na kay either 0 point something or negative 0 point something na siya. Padulong gina siya sa 0. Okay? So the answer is always 0. Okay, next. Okay, the class sila na ay 0. Okay. Ay mga 0 din, positive infinity. Kung na siguro 0 class, ano ni siya? Ang katong ganina. Basta na siya sa denominator. Mo kuan class mo ang value ni sa denominator kay matug infinite values. So mo na ma-zero siya. Sige dato na naawan daw class B. Okay, for any real number a greater than 1, so kani sila dili tanan, 8 kani ka buok. Okay, 1 2 3 4 lang akong ginumber. And then for any positive real number, ang a kay between sa 0 ug 1 na diri. Okay? Now, for any negative real number, negative a less than 0, so ito mga negative number na diri. And then if ang a is 0 na diri pud kasabas. Okay. So if a is greater than 1 class, okay, for example, 2. Okay, 2 to the power of x. Okay, class kung 2 to the power of x, example, imagine na lang nimo as x approaches to infinity. So dagko kay class imong i-values ni x. Diba mo adto siya sa positive infinity, right? Tama. Okay. Next dire limit sa a x niya ang x kay mga negative values. Di ba kung mga negative values ni class imong x, okay, para ma-positive siya, inaog na to siya sa ubos. So naa siya sa class sa denominator. That is 1 over a x na. Kaya dito naman ang transfer man tayo sa denominator, di ba? So mutong ganina nga theorem, kung sa denominator siya class mo adtog infinity, the answer is always 0. So this is 0. Okay? Now, in here, class, kailangan na nalahi siya. Tanabali siya, class, dire positive infinity, dire kay 0, and then this one goes to positive infinity. Okay. Dinhi, class, kay nga nang 0 ni siya. Kung 1/3 class, example lang, 1/3, power ni mo og x niya, ang x kay kuan, goes to positive infinity, so dako kayo siya, no? So example 1/3, kung imo nang i-cube class si 1/3, si may tabo, that is 1 over 9. Tama? So kung ang 1/3 class nagkagamay siya, di ba? Ang 1/3 kay kuan kas dako siya sa 1 over 9. Tama, dako siya sa 1 over 9. So wala siya nag-increase, ning decrease na noon siya as x approaches to positive infinity. Tama, ga-decrease ang value ani niya, kay ang a na to class kay in between man sa 0 to 1. Okay, so this one class, the answer class is 0 kay ma-approach na siya sa 0 nga value. And then if our x class approaches to negative infinity, so kung ma-negative siya class, example 1/3, no, 1/3 dayon iyang exponent kay negative, kay para ma-positive na siya class, di ba balihon lang man ta na siya, so more siya ma-reverse, no, marsyag ma-reverse, mabalik, so marsyag mahimong 3 to the power of a positive number na. Tama, ang 1/3, example 1/3 to the power of negative 3, for example. Okay, 1/3 to the power of negative 3, so balihon na siya, kay para ma-positive ay ang exponent, so may siyang 3 cube, so ma-positive 9 na siya. So muna class, iyang value goes to positive infinity. Okay, so money class diri tanan. So if negative pud atong x class, siya na pud ang ma-0 as x approaches to positive infinity. Na 0 naman ni kay positive man atong x, so ma-negative value ni tanan diri sa exponent, so ma-0 na siya. Then kani kung negative infinity, then negative ang x, so ma-positive ni nga value. So the number raised to positive value, so positive infinity. Okay, this one, okay, okay, 1/3 man tanan niya, i-raise na siya positive infinity, so ma-negative ni siya diri kasi mura siya ging ani, di ba? So this is positive infinity. Okay, and this one, so negative ug negative, so ma-positive ni siya, so ma-forma rin siya ging ani yung mga values, so 0 na siya. Okay, next one class, what if na ay negative sa gawas? Okay, walay appeal ani class si a, ha, kani nga negative, dili na siya sign sa a, sign ni siya sa whole function nga ax. Okay, na negative sa a to the power of x, so negative ni siya. Okay, dili si a ang negative. Tama. Okay, dili kani siya class ang negative nga a, then gi-raise na siya sa power nga x. Dili walay appeal ang negative nga gi-raise sa x. Okay, since this is negative, so mara siya diri class, i-times na natag negative diri, so gawas sa number 1 tanawa class. So kung igawas sa negative, so ang mga values na din ani class mahimong mga negative values, so ma-negative infinity ni siya. Okay, then kung mag-negative buta dire class sa pikas, nya 0 naman gud ni siya daan dire, di ba? So negative, example negative 1 times kani, tama di ba? Kaning limit ani niya kay gawas ni mga negative 1 times ni niya. Ang limit ani is always 0, so the answer is 0. Okay, then dire punta number 4. Okay, mararagyapon kung mag ano may negative dire class, so pwede rin igawas ang negative dire. So more negative 1 times kaning number 2. So this is 0, and then kung natay negative class, again, gawas na po natin ang negative aning dire, gawas na negative, no? Negative 1. Na so, ang a to the negative x class kay always positive, the limit ani kay positive infinity man. So, ang mga values din ana is always negative. So, it goes, the answer is negative infinity. Okay, so mamaara po ning dire sa 3, basta kay mabali lang ni sa 3 class, no? So, negative infinity, so ma-0 ni, kanina po siya negative infinity, and then dire kay siya na po the negative infinity, and then kaning last, siya na po ang 0 dire. Kaya nasa last. Okay? So, okay na. Next class, kung mag-negative class ang naasa sulod, then erase to power. Bisa kung sa nga power, positive ba na or negative infinity, negative x pa na siya diya. The answer class is always does not exist. Okay? Kung mag-graph ta ani class, maputol man na siya class kay walay dito sa pikas nga side sa mga negative values. Okay, then dire, sa 0, kung sa 0 punta class, kung 0 to the power of x, di ba, kung any number ning x class, erase nimo ang 0 to positive infinity, that is always 0. And then kung mag-negative siya class, and kani siya class sa walay appeal diri si 0 sa x, nga naman kay 0 to the power of 0 is indeterminate. So kung i-graph na siya class, walay excluded ana si 0, then straight lang na siya sa 0, no? Okay, so wala po yung value ani niya class ang yang negative infinity as limit kaning limit nga 0 to the power of x as x approaches negative infinity kay does not exist na siya nga naman. Kung ma-negative class iyahang mga exponents diya class, so 0 to the power of a negative number that is undefined, so wala siya limit class mo, does not exist na siya. Kani po number 2, same. Kung positive infinity niya, so mga positive ning x niya, so mga negative, nagyapon ang value kay na negative diri, so 0 to the power of negative number. Okay, diri pod. Okay, 0 to the negative x, limit of 0 to the power of negative x as x approaches to negative infinity man, so mga positive ni diri nga values, so the answer is 0. Okay, now next, limits of exponential functions nga example, mana ni siya class ang example nato. So kung e atong gamiton tas katong Eulerian constant which is approximately 2.718, so this is greater than 1, right? So ilisan na to og e class katong a nato, so muna yung mga answers, and then note that kung 1/3 ba itong kuan class, ipuli lang nato dito sa mga a. Okay, mo po niya ang answers, so same man ni siya dire sa previous. Ilisan na nako ni siya e kani mga a dire, kani siya magilisan og mga 1/3 na si a. Okay, then to check class if our answers are correct, so i-graph lang natin ni class. So kung mag-graph na ninyo, makita na ninyo nga kung positive infinity siya padulong, so positive infinity pod ang value sa function na to, goes upward ni siya, and then iyang negative class dito na po siya sa 0, so mura siya iyang graph ani kay murag paana class, oh, na gikan sa kuan straight lang siya sa 0, maragana then pasaka siya dito, so maragana iyang graph paana siya. Okay, next. Okay, so what if class mga rational functions na ang atong i-limit as x approaches to positive or negative infinity, so maging ani naman siya actually class, so mag-table lang taba kay as x approaches to positive infinity man, so magpadak-an na itong mga values class sa mga x, tanan to kung unsay lang kuan class, o dire muna nila kung 0 nimo si x, 0 pod ni siya yung value, na kung 1 pod, tama, kay kung 1 ni siya dire, this is 2, then 1 squared is 1 plus 1 kay 2 pod, so 2 divided by 2 is 1, so 1 dire, so muna siya din kasi mga values padulog 1000, di kung imo nang i-divide class mga 1 point something na tanan niya, mura 1.99 na sila diya, so mo siya ma-approach og nadadalhin ka sa the function values f of x get closer and closer to 2. Okay, therefore class the limit as 2x squared over x squared plus 1 as x approaches to positive infinity is equal to 2. So unya class kay Nani siya mga shortcut class, so doon na tamo niya sa shortcut anin. Di na tam sin mag table kay madugay kita ng table na kung daghan kay na siya. Okay, muna ang definition class. Let f be a function which is defined at every number in some interval a to positive infinity. So excluding any class si a wala appeal. So the limit of f of x as x increases without bound is L, written this one. Okay, so if for any epsilon greater than 0, however small, there exists n greater than 0 such that for x in the domain of f, the absolute value of f of x minus L should be less than epsilon whenever x is greater than n. So now let us consider the same function. So the same function lang class, and then kani class mga negative values na ba datong ibutang. So kung mag negative values gyapon ta class halata nawa class. Okay, mara gyapon. Yang values class kung imong ikuan mara gyapon siya ma-approach sa 2. So we intuitively see that x decreases without bound, and then f of x approaches to gihapon ang function nato sa f of x. So we say that for any epsilon greater than 0, however small, we can find an n less than 0 such that the absolute value of f of x minus 2 is less than epsilon whenever x is less than n. Okay. Using the symbol x approaches to negative infinity, so manadin class the limit of 2x squared over x squared plus 1 as x approaches to negative infinity is equal to 2. Okay, unya class ato na siyang ibalik class ha na ipakita to tong graph kung sakto ba jud. Okay, next definition number 2. Let f be a function which is defined at every number in some interval. So kani class negative infinity, then a na din siya, so from a to negative infinity. Okay, so the limit of f of x as x decreases without bound is L, so written kani siya limit of f of x is equal to L. So as x approaches to negative infinity. So if for any epsilon greater than 0, however small, there exists an n less than 0 such that for x in the domain of f, the absolute value of f of x minus L is less than epsilon whenever x is less than n. Okay, so if r is any positive integer, then the limit of 1 over x squared as x goes to positive infinity is equal to 0, and then the limit of 1 over x to the power of r as x approaches to negative infinity is equal to 0. So diri class, so gamitan ta class ang definition 4 para lang aning part ay kaning part ay itong i-prove, then kamo na aning part 2. Try lang. Okay, we now show that the definition 4 holds for f of x is equal to 1 over xr and L is equal to 0. So 0 atong L dito, no? That is, we must show that for any epsilon greater than 0, there exists an n greater than 0 such that for x in the, okay, so kanina din class, di ba ang forma, 1 over xr minus 0 is less than epsilon whenever x is greater than n. Okay, so or equivalently, so on many class. So, class, diba? Absolute value rin siya minus 0 man na, so mawala rin siya minus 0. So 1 over xr, then absolute value ni absolute value less than epsilon. Okay, so ang katong absolute value ni xr class, itong ibalin sa picas, then si epsilon, so more siyang ma-times to sa picas, then si epsilon atong i-divide diri sa picas. So may tabo class, si x to the power of r, mo na din siya, or equivalently, the absolute value of x to the power of r is greater than 1 over epsilon. Okay, nakita niyo to class? Balik ko na ko ha. Kung 1 na diri sa taas, di ba 1 absolute value na lang ni diri no, kay minus 0 wala naman ni siya value, so mabalhin ning absolute value diri na to. So kanila siya 1 over x to the r, then absolute value yan na may absolute value si 1 which is 1, so i-1 na nato, then over the absolute value of x to the power of r. Tama? Okay, so divide epsilon both sides ato class. Nagkanay po si kuan ni class si absolute value of x to the r, ibalhin sa picas, so ma-multiply lang siya sa picas kaya naman siya sa denominator, no? So ani siya dire sa epsilon, yan ang lugar. So ang nga na din ka sa inequality na ang mga tubang ni x to the power of r ng absolute value, then sa epsilon na divide dire sa picas, so mana na yung forma whenever x is greater than n. Okay, so next may tabo class. Okay, natay example class, ako na lang gi-show daan dire nga if 1 over x squared ta class, example 2 lang atong r Okay, tanawa class, as x approaches to infinity, to positive infinity, o to negative infinity, so naaragid sila class as 0 nga value sa atong y. Tama? Kaning na itong y na kaning vertical line. Okay, dara o. So, kung ning up unta ni class or ning down baka ni siya, so man negative infinity, then kung mo up kay positive infinity. Ana ra siya ha. Okay, so padayon ta ani. This is absolute value of x to the power of r. Okay, what if class ato ning ikuan class? Saan man na siya? Tanawa ang next class. Okay, so power man to r class, no? So mag times ato siyang i-raise class to the power of 1 over r. Kay kuan na ta class kay ang r na ta kay greater than or equal to 0 man. So this is positive. So pwede ra ta class magunsa man erase to siya to the power of 1 over r both sides. So mawala to siya dire. The absolute value of x na lang. Kay man na ni siya. Absolute value of x class is greater than 1 over epsilon dayon to the power of 1 over r. So in order to for the above to hold, i-take na to class si n og kani man na nitong n. Kay whenever x is greater than n man. So mo na ni atong himuong n. Nya positive man ni always. Tama? Nya positive pod always ato ang absolute value of x. Okay, thus we can conclude that ganun din siya class. 1 over x to the power of r minus 0 is less than epsilon whenever x is greater than n if rn is equal to 1 over epsilon to the power of 1 over r. So therefore, ang limit na din sa class of 1 over r is equal to 0 as x approaches to positive infinity. Okay, so na-prove na natin siya nga part. Next, limits of rational functions. So let h of x so is equal to f of x over g of x. So i-let lang natin class nga equal siya sa n over d. Okay, where n means numerator and then d denominator. So if the degree of n is equal to the degree of d, so if ang degree class and numerator and denominator are just equal, so ang limit and then ana class ang answer lang kay ratio of the leading coefficients. So ano no? Ang ratio na lang sa leading coefficients. If degree sa n class kay more siya n class good kanang ratio na lang nila kay example 2x over 3x. So makancel naman na to ang mga x dito class mo tong kuan na lang 2 over 3 na lang bilhin, no. So mo tong ratio of the leading coefficients. Next class, if degree sa n is less than degree sa d. So kung gamay class ang degree sa n, dako ang degree sa d, di ba? Kung dako ang degree class sa denominator mo tong so meaning ani ang denominator class mo approach siya to infinity. So the answer is 0. Di ba ganina? Okay class, if degree sa n class is greater than or equal to degree sa d, so nara sa numerator class ang moran. So either positive infinity siya or sa negative infinity siya nga part. So positive muna yung answer is positive infinity or negative infinity. Depende class kung unsa ang sign sa to ang kani siya si f of x over gx. So kung this one is always positive, so positive infinity. If this one is always negative, so negative infinity po siya. Okay? So example number 1. Ang limit of 4x minus 3 over 2x plus 5. Okay, solution. Kaya kani siya class ang solution class nga pinakataas nga solution. So, ang ato lang buhaton class is sa shortcut na lang ta mag-solve. Okay, so at least kabalo mo saan siya pag-solve og dili siya shortcut. So mo ni siya iyang kuan class solution nga taas kaayo. Okay, so ang gibuhat niya class ngani ang step nga buhaton niya class. Mangita ta class kung asa diha ang naay largest nga term, and then atong i-divide niya since x lang man class puro man sila x, so i-divide x na sila tanan class mo na divide x man itabok man na siya 4 minus 3 over x then 2 plus 5 over x, no then pagkahuman class nya kani kung na so yan gibuhat ta class nag minus pa siya diri og kinabutangan pag inyang parenthesis. Pwede naman siya diretso unta diri no. Gilimit niya class ang taas, gilimit ang sa ubos sa mana ni siya. Tama. So dugay ka himtama human ani. Nang gilimit na po niyan tagsa-tagsa ni sila tanan. Okay, kani siya kay una man sa denominator ang x, denominator pod x. Diba kung nas denominator class mo, sige increase ang denominator. This is 0 and this is 0. So ang bilhin na lang class 4 over 2, tama? Kidara. Dara na, yan ang gi-0 na ning diri. Yan times pa niya sa 3 ug 5. So times ni mo na dira class, ma 0 ra gyapon na. So 4 over 2 is 2. Tama? Okay, so muna yung long method. Ito ng long method kasi natin shortcut. Okay. So, if degree sa n is equal to degree sa d class, ito lang ipabilin tas ang mga term nga katong naikuan class with the largest exponent. No? Then, nantay number ng mga leading coefficient na dayon. Okay, diri class, ang largest ang term nga with largest exponent kay 4x man diri pud sa pikas kay 2x. Okay, na makancel ang x diri na din class, equal siya na nga limit diri ha. So canceled ang x diri, so 4 over 2 na din. So limit sa 4 over 2 which is constant, this is 2. So the answer is 2. Then if the limit goes to negative infinity, the same, the answer is positive 2. Okay? Okay class, tanawa ang graph. Okay, muna siya yung graph class sa 4x minus 3 over 2x plus 5. Kita nawa class, as x approaches to positive infinity class, diri ra gid siya sa value sa 2. Diri man ang 2. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, 10 man na siya diha, di ba? So sa 2 class, diri ra siya sa 2 taman. For me na siya diha. Then ang negative infinity pod class, as x approaches to negative infinity, tanawa. Okay, diri ra po siya sa value sa 2 padulong. Okay? So, unang answer niya is always 2. Next. Okay, muna itong example ganina class, katong limit of 2x squared, katong nag-table ta over x squared plus 1. So 2, and then as x approaches to positive infinity o negative infinity class, the same lang, the answer is always 2. Ito na yung table ganina. So ito siyang isolve class sa shortcut na to. Di na itong table. So, highest na dire, so katong ito na highest exponent kay 2x squared, so maray mabilin direct na sa x squared plus 1 ang highest ang term with the highest exponent kay x squared, ras mawala na ning 1, so x squared dire nya cancel ding x squared over x squared, 2 na lang. So ang answer di class, if ang degree sa n equals degree sa d, ratio na lang class sa leading coefficients. Tama? Okay, ang as x approaches to negative infinity, the answer is 2 gihapon. Okay, so ang graph class dara. Okay, dara class. Kung makita natin sa graph class tanawa. As x approaches to positive infinity, okay, tama na siya sa 2 plus approaches sa 2. Then, diri pod ma-approach po just sa value sa 2. Tama? Pwede na siya mo abot class sa 2 class ha. Approaching lang na siya sa value sa 2. Hindi na siya mo maabot yun og 2. Okay, bisa kung saan mo substitute class og x dira class ya. 1.999 na gina siya. Mangyana ra. Tama ang yang value. Di na siya kabot jud og 2 class. Okay, next. The limit of x squared over x plus 1 as x approaches to positive infinity. Okay, tanawa class. So muna yang kuan class, yang long method. Okay, nga si x squared kay siya man ang pinakadako, gi-divide niya both side at tanang terms of x squared. So divide ning x squared may mong 1. X divide x squared ma 1 over x, then 1 divide x squared, so 1 over x squared. So muna din na patsi mga ani siya. So dito na takas diretso sa itong shortcut nga method. Okay, this is example number 3 class ha. Okay, dara solution, dividing the numerator and the denominator x squared ang i-divide sa tanan. Okay, dara natin itong shortcut class nasa ubos. Dira if degree sa n is greater than degree sa d, so mao ni class x squared na lang mabilin dire, then dire x kay siya ang dako nga term, tama? Yeah, the term with the largest exponent is x. Okay, x squared over x kay x na lang, tama? Yes, x approaches to positive infinity ni mo ning x, positive man ni, so positive infinity. So if ang limit ani class kay goes to negative infinity, ang answer pud kay negative infinity. Okay, dara na diri class ang negative infinity sa kilid. So negative infinity pud siya kung ang limit as x approaches to negative infinity, same function. Okay, dara din yung graph class, x squared plus 1. Tanawa class, kung ang x nga values goes to positive infinity, pasaka siya, so positive infinity. Then diri pod as x approaches to negative infinity, pa down yung values, so negative infinity. So nga nilang class ang pag-check kung ganahan mo makita ang ang answer if positive or negative infinity. Kung kabalo mo mag-graph, inyalay siyang i-graph. Okay, next. Number 4. 5x squared over, para lang ito i-check ha, yung i-graph, makita nyo kung check ba yung answer. Okay, limit of 5x squared over 3x to the 4th plus x cubed. So, shortcut na dito sa class. Okay, ang highest degree dito kay 2, and highest degree dito kay 4, so sila na mabilin. So x squared, kung makancel ni x squared, diri na din ang mabilin class. So 4 minus na natog 2, so x squared diri sa ubos. So 5 over 3x squared. Yun naman sa denominator class ang x. It goes to positive values. So the answer is 0. So bisan pag ang limit pag class as x approaches to negative infinity, the answer is also 0 gihapon. Kaya naman sa denominator class ang value magka-increase, di ba? Kung magka-increase ang value class sa denominator to infinity, the answer is 0. Okay? So dapat class ilang graph, okay, as you can see. At positive infinity class, 0 yung value. Then kung negative infinity class, ma-approach pa just sa 0 nga values. Tama? Okay. Next, limits of some algebraic functions. So, okay, example. So, mura siya kuan class na mura siya rational function kaya na siya denominator. Pero yung denominator class na ay absolute value. Ay, na ay square root. Okay. So, mauni class iyang long method. Okay, nga naon siya. So, di na taning long method class sa shortcut na diretso. At wala pabiling class ang katunay mga largest exponent. Diri class kay 3x. Then diri sa ubos kay square root of 2x squared. Gamay maning minus 5 no. Okay. So, dala shortcut. Dala. Ang mabili na lang kay 3x over square root of 2x squared. Okay. Nya as x class approaches to positive infinity. Kung positive ni siya class is x squared. Then square root ni mo. So, positive x ra ni. So, dara x ra gyapon. So, square root of 2 times x. Nya, cancel ning x class. So, the answer is 3 over square root of 2. Tama? Pero class as x approaches to negative infinity, lahi siya og answer. Kaya danawa class. Same solution dire. Ana? 3x, kato na lang nabilin. 3x over square root of 2x squared. Kaya sila ang kuan with largest coefficient ng mga terms. Tama? So, 3x, then square root of 2 times, then times nato sa square root pod sa x squared. Nya kaning square root of x squared class, di ba absolute value man siya sa x? So, kung negative imong mga value sa x, equal siya sa negative x. Kaya kung i-negative nimo ni, kanina mga x, ma-positive man ni, tama? Okay, absolute value good. Or square root of x squared. So, negative x siya. X, cancel din mga x dire. So, the answer is negative 3 over square root of 2. Okay? So, tanaw na to class ilang graph kung sakto ba. Okay, dara class. So, as x approaches to positive infinity, okay, the value goes to 3 square root of 2. 3 square root of 2 ni siya class nga value. Okay? Then, direct sa picas, as x approaches to negative infinity, this is negative 3 square root of 2. So, mga siya nga value. Napit siya sa ubos class at tanawa. Diba? Negative naman nga part dito sa ubos. So, mga siyang negative 3 square root of 2. Same na sila class of distance. Oh. Di siya ma-approach nga value class ha. Pero dili ka na ilahang answer dire. Mo kana sana nga value. Paduol og ayo. Okay? Okay class, example number 2. So, the limit of mga functions ni class nga mga combination sa mangid na ay mga rational exponents. So, dagan kay sila no. Then, i-divide po siya og katon ng mga equation, mga terms with rational exponents. So, ang buhaton natin class is, saan man? Mangita natin, asa diya ang pinakadako sa mga exponent nila. Diba? Then, katong pinakadako lang ang mabilin class. Okay. So, solution. Okay, note that. Okay, sa numerator diri class, sa first, dako si 3/4, kaysa kang 2/5, kaysa kang 1/3. Actually, parehara sila og numerator na. Laylay lang sila og denominator. Kaya sa denominator lang ta class ani magtigi. Tigi jud. Okay, 3/4 ang dako class. Then, diri po sa denominator diri sa first, dako si 4/5. Okay, then diri sa picas, siyempre ang numerator same, dako si 3/4. And then, diri sa denominator, ang dako na po diri class kay si 2/3, kaning na diri sa tunga nga term. Okay, 2/3 na. Okay, next. So, dili na tanong. First, so, mabiling class katulan ay exponent nga 3/4 ug 4/5. So, dara na, negative 3x to the 3/4 and then 6 to the power of 4/5. Okay, class, ang may tabaan ni Kay nigamay man ni si 3/4 class kaysa kang 4/5 na minus siya diri sa denominator. Tama? So 4/5 minus 3/4. And then gi-factor lang ta class is 6. So 3 times 2 makancel din 3 diri. So mabili na lang negative 1/2 x to the, okay, kung minus ni si 4/5 plus minus 3/4, the answer is 1/20. Okay class, as x approaches the positive infinity, so diri ta class mag-value class sa denominator as x approaches the positive infinity. So the answer class is 0. Tama, kay diri man na mag-increase, perminti man na mag-increase di ang value sa denominator. So dako og value ang denominator class, perminti, so the answer is 0. Okay, next class. Since the denominator goes to positive infinity, tama? Okay. Class, what if ang limit class kay negative infinity? Okay, what if ang limit there goes to negative infinity? So, answer. The answer is, what niya kay, hala class, even class si Q. Nasa denominator. Diba? Kung even class ang denominator, ang answer din class is, does not exist. So, mag does not exist ni class nga limit na dayon. Kung as x approaches to negative infinity. Okay, dirita class sa next. Limit na pagtaan ng kaduha, as x approaches to infinity. So, ang dako na pinaka si 3/4 lagi hapon og si 2/3 kani siya. So, mo rin mabilin. Sa limit of negative 3x to the 3/4 and then 6x to the 2/3. Nya class mas dako si 3/4 kaysa kang 2/3. So, minus na to dito sa taas ang exponent diri sa ubos. So, cancel pud ang 3 ani class og ang 6 may na lang 2 sa ubos. Okay. So, negative. Okay, negative yung value diha. So, cancel na ang 3 ani ha. Next ani class, may mo siyang negative 1/2 at alay gawas o negative 1/2. Then, ang x na to class 3/4 minus 2/3 is 1/12. Okay. Up to positive infinity man is mga positive values ni diri class yan multiplied by negative 1/2. So, the value here is always negative. So, the answer is negative infinity. Diba? Okay, class, what if kanina pong dire gihapon kaduha as x approaches to negative infinity ni. So what if as x approaches to negative infinity kaning x diri unya 12 man, even number si 12 kaning nasa denominator q nya wala man ay 12th root ang kuan ang negative value. So, does not exist class ang answer. Tama, di ba? Kung q na to dira is even, ang x diri is negative value. So, the answer is does not exist. So, katong mga as x approaches to negative infinity aning duha class, the answers ato nila are does not exist. Okay? Now, change your I can to I can. Okay, be one of the mathematics legends. Okay, goodbye class and see you never. Thank you.